we're on our way to a place called Kundri in Umerkot district, which is one of the worst affected areas of Umerkot. And people there are swamped, and there's no access really by road, and so our car can't go through there. So we've hitched a ride with the police, and they're taking us through there because they have four-wheel drives, and so we want to get there and show you what's happening over there. And we will, of course, through the day be traveling to other affected areas of Umerkot district as well before we head on to Mirpurkhas. We're going to try and bring you as complete a picture as we can of what's happening in this part of Sindh. We're now in a boat and making our way towards Kundri city. This is a part of Umerkot district that has been the most affected. The local police administration here has organized this boat for us, and before the motor starts up, I quickly want to tell you that the water here is quite deep, and so we are going to make our way over to the affected people, many of whom have already been evacuated by the police. We'll bring you details of that through our boat, rather rocky boat ride. And it's really amazing. I mean, the water here is still very deep. It's really hot today, and that's a good thing, because the hotter the sun, the more it will. And I've just been pointed out that these things that you can see in the water, electricity wires that have collapsed and are lying here in the water. I'm assuming we're going past one right now. And these are electricity wires that have collapsed in the rains. And the water here is quite deep, from what I can tell. Must be at least 6 to 8 feet. And the water is muddy and very dark. And as I said, this is in Umerkot. Now, a lot of people don't realize that Umerkot has been so badly affected. Well, the villagers here have been stranded, and it has been a really difficult time. The road here wasn't traversable while it was raining. It's only now that some of the water has receded that at least we were able to reach this point from where we can continue by boat. But as you can see behind me, it's just as bad as more well-known affected areas like Badin, which we showed you in our previous program. Badin has a lot of water as well, and miles of it, as you saw. But Umerkot, this is the worst part of it. We just to get the road here is not traversable. You can't come here by vehicle. So the people are still walking here. As you can see, it's sort of calf length water here. And the police officers with me are telling me that the area where we are headed, the water is as deep as 25 feet. So this area, and we have to point out to you, this is desert. This used to be a desert. This is desert land that we're talking about. The people here aren't used to this kind of water at all. They have no concept on how to even begin to deal with what has happened over here. And it's going to take a lot of time for this water to evaporate. I don't see how it's going to happen if it's 25 feet, so it will have to be drained at some point. And I should point out to you that the boat we are in is actually a police boat. It belongs to the Sindh police, and the DPO of Umerkot, Mr. Mirpurkhas, has arranged for us to be here. He is here with me right now as well, guiding us through what's happening over here. And with me now is ASI Khalil. He's with the Sindh police here in Umerkot, and he has done a lot of rescue work himself, and he joins us now. And ASI साहब मुझे बताएं कि जब पानी आना शुरू हुआ तो आपने कब लोगों को निकालना शुरू किया और क्या मुश्किलात थी?
बस जैसे ही मुझे इतला हुआ कि ये हमारे गांव के साथ जो पीछे हमने रोड क्रॉस किया.
This is an amazing story. ASI Khalil is telling me that when he heard about what was happening here, he came on a motorcycle. When he saw that the water levels were rising, he knew people were trapped. First he got tractor trolleys to try and get people out. That wasn't enough. Then he phoned the SSP of the police, and they got 4 boats organized at 5 o'clock in the morning, between 4 and 5 a.m. and they started bringing people out, and he says they brought out thousands of people. कितने हजार लोग?
तकरीबन 4,4500 लोग होंगे.
4,000, more than 4,500 people were rescued from here by boats, bringing them out. And ASI Khalil told me that he found people perched on trees. They were sitting on the roofs of whatever houses that had survived, and he plucked each and every one of them off and put them in these boats and brought them to the mainland where there was less water. And more interestingly, of course, he's pointing out that very, very happily that there was not a single casualty. He says that anybody who needed help, he got to them and he got them out. And there were no accidents, and that is absolutely wonderful news. And beyond that, he says that he didn't pay attention to the traditional police structure of not going out of his district. When he discovered that there were people stranded in Mirpurkhas, which is beyond Umerkot district, we're in Umerkot right now, he even rescued people from Mirpurkhas and just kept bringing them to higher ground, where of course the camps are now continuing. And on our way from Umerkot city to Kundri, which is where we are now, we saw numerous camps of displaced persons who are living in makeshift shelters, and we saw the police distributing food and cash. And it's sort of interesting because normally when citizens of Pakistan see the police, they run in the other direction. This time around, people are running towards the police cars because they know they're getting food, aid and help. And of course earlier we showed you the hospital that is being run with the assistance of the police.
मुसलसल 25 दिन तक इधर बरसात चली और बरसात में लोग मुझे.
ASI Khalil of course says that they worked here for 25 days while it was raining, and initially of course it was too wet to be able to cook anything or to be able to, and people were obviously traumatized. We have received indications that people were shivering, shaking. You have to remember that these are desert people. They're not used to floods and rains of this nature. And ASI Khalil was just telling me that for the first few days, their SSP themselves, they got together, they collected dry fruit, chana, biscuits, water, and they gave that to the people because that was what they needed to survive. And then people who are on higher ground, they took people into their homes. So the police is still providing meals, 800 large cooking pots, what are called days. 800 cooking pots of food are being cooked every day and provided to the people over here. And this is a gigantic task, there's no doubt about it. But the problem really is, of course, that a lot of people simply don't even realize how badly Umerkot has been affected, and how particularly difficult it is in this area because the people here are not used to this. They have no concept of how to deal in this kind of situation, and so that's particularly the hard problem that people are facing over here, the ones we've spoken to. And so that is a complication that is going to continue, and we have to see how it goes. I want to get some idea of how deep the water is over here, and I hope I don't drop this pole because I'm told the water is pretty deep. So I'm going to hold on to this real tight, and we are going to try and get this down. Oh boy. Oh boy, I haven't touched bottom yet. Okay, I'm not even being able to touch bottom, and it is definitely a lot more than 10 feet. We can see that the water here is incredibly deep. I don't see how this is going to evaporate. This will have to be drained. Now, from the visuals that you can see right now on your screen, those are villages up ahead. They're completely submerged in water. We're going to see if we can try and access them. It's going to be kind of hard because this is a difficult terrain. But we're going to try and see if we can go and see what is left of those villages. They're completely submerged. All the villages there are empty, but at least we can get some idea of what has happened here. But just as far as the eye can see, there seems to have been utter devastation here. District Police Chief Mirpurkhas is himself guiding the boat at this point because he knows pretty much where to go. So he's taking us. We're going to be picking up a bit of speed here, so I don't know how clearly you can hear me. The only solid structure you can see on your screens right now is the mosque, because that was solid and that has survived, but the entire village around it has completely submerged, and because it was predominantly made of mud, the houses are gone. This region of Sindh, Tharparkar, Umerkot, is renowned for one other thing. One legend, of course, is that of Umar Marvi, the famous love legend that everybody has heard of. The king of Umar in the 11th century fell in love with a girl from Tharparkar called Marvi, and he enticed her to Umerkot, and she didn't want to be there. She wanted to go back to the desert where she belonged. He plied her with riches and jewels, and she refused, and she said, "All I want is my desert." And eventually the king of Umerkot, Umar, took Marvi back to the desert, and that's where she was happy, and she continued, and that's why she's a legend in Sindh. The other story about Sindh and Umerkot and Tharparkar is that it is notoriously full of snakes, and as Awab Talpur told us earlier in the program, there have been a lot of cases of snake bite here in this area. The snakes have in the desert, now they're in the water. Many of them have possibly not survived in the water. They're desert snakes, but there are water snakes as well. They're very poisonous. Snakes are part of a culture here too. For example, we have jogis, and jogis are snake charmers, and they have amazing stories to tell. They have king cobras and all different kinds of snakes. I'm not a terrible fan of snakes, so I'm afraid I didn't let the jogi perform his full art, but you can see here the jogis came to show us their craft as well. They're also internally displaced people. They also need help, but more than that, there are snakes in this water, and we also need anti-snake venom. It's pretty serious, and that is another thing that needs to be worked on an emergency basis. We've been traveling now for more than 45 minutes along this ancient waterway. This used to be dry. Of course, when the rains came this year, this has become a virtual river now. There is velocity in the water. The interesting thing that I didn't know, which I've just discovered, is that last year's floods did not affect, I repeat, did not affect this area. So this is the first time that the people of Umerkot, Tharparkar are facing this kind of problem. Last year's floods affected Badin, Thatta, Hala,